Well, hello there, dear friend. I'm so glad you could join me today. Let's just imagine we're sitting together in a quiet garden nook, the kind with a well-worn wooden bench, dappled sunlight, and a gentle breeze, carrying the scent of fresh earth. Maybe you've got a cup of tea in your hands, and there's that familiar comfort in knowing you don't need anything fancy to feel at home here. You know, I've always believed that beauty doesn't come from spending a lot of money. It comes from looking at something ordinary, maybe even something most people would toss away, and seeing its second life. Old bottles, for example. To some, they're clutter. But to me, they're blank canvases, little opportunities waiting for a bit of care and imagination. Today, we're not just talking about saving a few dollars or keeping plastic out of the landfill, though that's part of it. We're talking about the quiet joy of creation, the kind that doesn't strain your back or empty your wallet. These ideas are gentle enough for hands that have seen many seasons, and they bring something more than beauty. They bring stories, memories, and a bit of magic into the garden. So let's take a slow stroll through some of my favorite bottle transformations. You might just find that what was once headed for the trash can become the highlight of your backyard. Do you remember the days when fresh herbs came from a little patch right outside the kitchen door? Maybe your mother had a row of basil and mint, or perhaps you've grown parsley yourself over the years. There's something so satisfying about plucking a sprig, rinsing it under the tap, and adding it straight into a simmering pot or a pitcher of iced tea. But for many of us, bending down or tending a full garden bed isn't as easy as it once was. That's where today's first treasure comes, in a hanging herb garden made from something as simple as a plastic soda bottle. It starts with a 2-liter bottle, the kind that might have been left over from a family barbecue or a holiday gathering. Give it a good rinse then with a pair of scissors or a small utility knife. Carefully cut the bottle in half horizontally. Don't fret over perfect lines. The charm is in the handmade touch. The bottom half becomes your planter. A few small holes poked in the base will let excess water drain, keeping your herbs happy. Fill it 2/3 with soft, fresh potting soil. As your fingers work through it, take a moment to enjoy that earthy scent, a smell that's followed gardeners across generations. Gently plant your herbs: basil for pasta nights, mint for tea, or parsley for garnishing Sunday dinners. To hang it, poke a small hole near the top edge, thread through twine or an old shoelace, and tie it securely. Find a sunny spot, maybe a fence post or the balcony rail, and let it dangle where you can reach it without bending. In no time, you'll have a cascade of green leaves brushing against your fingertips, ready for your next meal. And each time you snip a leaf, you'll be reminded that even the simplest things can become something beautiful, still useful just like us. Have you ever walked outside on a warm evening and wished you could bottle up that peaceful twilight glow? There's something about the garden at dusk, the air cooler, the colors softer, the world slowing down. That feels like magic. And today's idea lets you keep a little bit of that magic, all with an old plastic bottle and a strand of fairy lights. Pick a bottle you like. It could be clear for a crisp sparkle, or perhaps blue or green for a softer colored glow. Give it a rinse and cut it in half, just like with the herb planter. The bottom will hold a small plant, so add a bit of soil and tuck in a succulent or petite flower. You don't need much, just enough to create a living centerpiece inside your glowing vessel. Now the fun part. The lights. Choose battery-operated fairy lights with a thin, flexible wire. They're light enough to weave gently around the plant and nestle into the soil without crushing anything. The tiny bulbs will peek through leaves and petals, casting a gentle shimmer. Keep the battery pack tucked at the back or under the bottle so it's easy to switch on when the sun dips low. You can leave the wire draped inside for a twinkling nest effect, or poke small, careful holes near the bottle's top and thread the lights through for a starry look that wraps the whole container. Place these glowing planters along a patio rail, on outdoor steps, or in little clusters by a garden path. When darkness falls, they'll softly illuminate the space, a reminder that even an everyday bottle can hold something beautiful, bright, and unexpected. And as you sit with that glow nearby, maybe sipping a cup of tea, you'll feel the same quiet joy I do, the joy of knowing that with just a bit of care, you can turn the ordinary into pure enchantment. There's a certain peace in knowing your plants are cared for, even when you can't be right there with them every day. I remember summers when life got busy or the weather turned unexpectedly hot, and I'd return to find my poor potted plants drooping in thirst. That's why I love this next project. It's like giving your plants their own gentle helper made from nothing more than a plastic bottle and a strip of old cotton. Start with a medium to large bottle, depending on the plant you're tending. Cut it in half horizontally. The bottom will be your water reservoir, and the top, flipped upside down, will hold the soil and plant. Before you nest the top inside the bottom, you'll need to make the lifeline between them. That's your wick, a piece of cotton string, a shoelace, or a strip of an old t-shirt. Thread one end of the wick through the bottleneck so it hangs into the water below, and leave the other end up in the soil area. When you fill the bottom with water, the wick will slowly draw moisture up to the roots, keeping them perfectly hydrated. No guessing, no worrying, and no more wilted leaves on a hot afternoon. Fill the upper section with potting soil, plant your favorite herb flower or leafy green, and place the whole system in a sunny spot. The beauty of this setup is that it's gentle on you, no need to bend over daily with a watering can, and it's gentle on the plants too. Every time I check mine, I can't help but smile at how simple and clever it is. A bottle that might have ended up in the recycling bin is now quietly nurturing life one drop at a time. It's a reminder that with the right care, both plants and people thrive sometimes with just a little help from a friend. There's something about the flutter of wings in the garden that makes the whole space feel alive. I still remember sitting at my grandmother's kitchen window watching the finches and cardinals gather around her old wooden feeder. She'd hum softly as she refilled it, saying the birds were guests worth feeding. Today's project lets you invite those same guests into your yard using nothing more than a plastic bottle, a bit of twine, and some bird seed. Choose a sturdy soda bottle, rinse it clean, and dry it well. Near the bottom, cut 2 small holes opposite each other. These will be where the birds peck through to reach the seed. Just above those holes, cut 2 slightly larger openings on each side. Slide a wooden dowel, a pencil, or even a strong twig through these larger openings to make a perch. Picture a little sparrow or chickadee resting there, nibbling happily. Next, fill the bottle about halfway with bird seed. You can choose a general mix or something special for the birds you see most often in your area. A sunflower seed blend will attract cardinals, while a finer seed will bring in finches and wrens. For hanging, wrap twine or sturdy string around the bottle's neck and tie it into a secure loop. Hang it from a tree branch, a shepherd's hook, or even along a fence where you can enjoy the view. Then the real magic begins. One morning you'll step outside, and there they'll be bright feathers against the green of your garden, gentle chirps floating through the air. It's a peaceful exchange. You offer a meal, and they bring song and movement in return. And each time you refill that little feeder, you'll be part of a tradition gardeners have loved for generations, sharing our spaces and our hearts with the creatures that make them feel whole. Some gardens bloom with flowers, others with vegetables. But there's another kind of bloom that comes from art. I've always believed a garden should tell a story not just through plants, but through little touches that reflect the person who tends it. This project is perfect for that, turning plain plastic bottles into colorful wall art that can brighten a fence shed or even the side of the house. Start by collecting bottles in different shapes and sizes. The variety will make your finished piece more interesting. Rinse them clean, then decide what you'd like to create. You might go for big, bold flowers with layered petals, or something more abstract, swirls, spirals, and sunbursts that catch the light. Cutting is the first step to transformation. For flowers, slice the bottle into petal shapes, curving the edges gently. For abstract designs, cut strips or twisty shapes. There's no right or wrong here. Every curve and angle adds personality. Once cut, it's time for color. Acrylic paint works beautifully, and you can be as bold or soft as you like. Reds, yellows, and oranges will make a fiery display. Blues, purples, and greens will bring a calming, meadow-like feel. Don't forget the edges. A little paint there makes the shapes pop. When the pieces are dry, glue them together with hot glue to form your design. You can mount them onto a wooden board for easy hanging, or attach them directly to a wall or fence. A few strategically placed pieces can transform a plain corner into the highlight of your yard. Every time I walk past my own bottle art, I see more than just colors. I see the afternoon I spent painting, the joy of shaping each petal, and the way the sunlight now dances across the garden wall. It's proof that even the humblest of materials can carry beauty, and that, like us, they only grow richer with a little creativity and love. There's a certain magic in the sound of water. It can take an ordinary garden and make it feel like a retreat, a place where time slows and the mind rests. This little project lets you bring that magic into your space without heavy lifting or expensive equipment, using nothing more than a plastic bottle, a small pump, and a few decorative touches. Begin with a clean, sturdy 2-liter bottle. Cut it in half horizontally, keeping both sections. The bottom will be the base that holds water, and the top flipped upside down will act as a spout where the water trickles down. Nest the top into the bottom so it sits snugly, creating a small channel for the water to flow through. Next, place your small submersible pump inside the bottom section. These pumps are light and easy to find online or at garden centers, and they run quietly. Position the pump so the outlet points up toward the spout. If you'd like, secure it in place with a dab of hot glue, leaving room for the cord to reach your outlet. Now, the part that turns it from DIY to delightful decoration. Arrange smooth pebbles, river stones, or even bits of moss around the base to hide the pump. You can also tuck in a few small plants around the edge for a natural pond-like feel. Fill the base with water until the pump is fully submerged, then switch it on. You'll hear the gentle trickle right away, the water spilling from the spout into the pool below. It's a sound that draws you in, inviting you to pause and breathe. Place your fountain somewhere you can enjoy it daily, near a favorite chair, beside your flower beds, or even on a balcony. Over time, you might notice it becomes more than just decoration. It's a quiet companion, always ready to remind you that beauty and peace can come from the simplest things. Even an old bottle reshaped by your own 2 hands. A garden path is more than just a way to get from one place to another. It's an invitation to explore a gentle guide that leads you through moments of beauty. And with this project, the path itself becomes part of the display. By turning plastic bottles into colorful planters, you can line your walkway with flowers and greenery that welcome every step. Begin by collecting medium-sized bottles. Remove any labels, then wash and dry them well. If you'd like the paint to last longer, lightly sand the outside with fine grit sandpaper so the color clings better. This is the fun part: painting. Use acrylic paints in cheerful shades, sunny yellows, ocean blues, warm reds, or even soft pastels. You can paint them solid or add playful patterns, polka dots, stripes, or little hand-painted flowers. Once the paint is dry, turn each bottle into a planter by cutting a drainage hole in the bottom. A small slit with a utility knife or scissors is enough to keep excess water from pooling. Fill each bottle about 2/3 with potting soil, then plant small blooms like marigolds, pansies, or petunias. Succulents also work beautifully for a low-maintenance option. Arrange your bottle planters along the edges of your path. You can line them up neatly for a classic look or cluster them in small groups for a whimsical cottage garden feel. As the flowers grow and spill over the edges, the bottles almost disappear into a ribbon of color. What I love most about this project is how it turns something plain into something welcoming. Each painted bottle is a little gesture of joy, and together they create a path that feels cared for and alive. And when guests walk down it, or even when it's just you with your morning tea, those bright planters will make each step feel a little lighter. Some flowers are meant to be enjoyed up close: a handful of tulips in spring, a single rose snipped at just the right moment, or a little bouquet of daisies picked on a whim. This project gives those blooms a charming home, turning simple plastic bottles into vases you'll be proud to display on a windowsill, dining table, or porch rail. Start with clean, dry bottles. Medium-sized ones work nicely, but you can choose taller or shorter shapes, depending on the look you want. With scissors or a utility knife, cut the bottle to your desired height. For a classic vase slice, just below the neck. For something more whimsical, cut the top into scallops or petal-like shapes. Don't worry if the cuts aren't perfect. Those small variations add character. Next comes the color. Acrylic paint is your best friend here. You might go for soft pastels, blush pink sky blue, gentle lavender for a romantic look, or perhaps bold jewel tones to make your blooms pop. If you're feeling playful, add hand-painted patterns, stripes, dots, or even little vines winding up the side. Once the paint is dry, fill the vase with a bit of water if you're using fresh flowers, or arrange dried or artificial blooms if you'd like something longer lasting. A few decorative stones or marbles at the bottom can add weight and a touch of sparkle. Place your finished vase where it can catch the light. On a sunny morning, you might see the painted edges glowing softly, framing the blooms you've chosen. Every time you walk past, you'll be reminded of the beauty in small things, a bloom brought indoors, a bottle given a second life, and the quiet pleasure of making something with your own hands. These vases don't just hold flowers. They hold the simple joy of creation. There's something uplifting about flowers that hang at eye level, swaying gently in the breeze. They greet you as you pass by, almost like old friends. This project brings that beauty into your space with an easy, inexpensive twist, transforming plastic bottles into charming, hanging flower pots. Begin with a clean, dry bottle. A regular soda bottle works well, but you can choose larger or smaller sizes depending on the plant you want. Using scissors or a utility knife, cut the bottle in half. The bottom section will be your planter, while the top can be saved for another project. For a softer, more decorative look, you can shape the cut edge into gentle curves, almost like the rim of a traditional clay pot. Before planting, poke 1 or 2 small drainage holes in the base so water doesn't collect. Next, create the hanger. Cut 2 lengths of sturdy twine or rope. Tie each piece securely to opposite sides of the bottle's rim. Then bring the loose ends together above and knot them to form a loop. This loop will make hanging simple. Fill the bottle 2/3 full with potting soil. Choose flowers or plants that will thrive in your chosen spot: petunias for cascading color, pansies for cheerful faces, or even lavender for a soft fragrance. Gently press the plant into the soil, filling around the roots and leaving room for watering. Now comes the fun part, deciding where to display it. You might hang your pots from a porch beam, along a balcony rail, or even on sturdy hooks attached to a fence. A cluster of these hanging pots, each with different flowers, can turn a plain wall into a vertical garden bursting with life. And every time the wind stirs them, you'll be reminded that beauty doesn't have to be heavy, expensive, or complicated. Sometimes it's as light as a flower swinging gently in a bottle you saved from the trash. Some gardens have flowers, others have fountains, but the ones I remember most fondly always had a bit of whimsy. A smiling gnome peeking out from behind a pot, a tiny hat just visible above the flowers. It's the kind of charm that makes a garden feel alive. With this project, you can make your own cheerful gnomes from something as ordinary as a plastic bottle. Start with a sturdy 2-liter bottle and cut off the bottom third. This rounded section will form the gnome's body. Then take the top part of the bottle, cut away the neck, and shape it into a cone. This will be the hat. If you'd like a taller or shorter hat, adjust the cone's height before gluing it in place. Use a hot glue gun or strong adhesive to attach the hat securely to the top of the body. Once assembled, it's time to bring your gnome to life with paint. A bright red or deep blue for the hat is traditional, but you can pick any color that makes you smile. Paint the body in earthy tones like tan or brown, then add a fluffy white beard with sweeping brush strokes. A small wooden bead button or stone glued to the center will serve as the nose. From here, the fun is in the details. Add tiny arms made from twigs or fabric scraps or paint on a belt around the middle. If you want your gnome to look ready for garden work, glue a miniature rake shovel or even a little watering can into one hand. Place your finished gnome among your plants beside a path or near a bird bath. Over time, you might make a whole little village of bottle gnomes, each with its own personality. And every time you spot one peeking out from behind the marigolds or roses, you'll be reminded that gardens are not just for growing plants, they're for growing smiles too. There's something almost magical about a terrarium, a little world under glass, where plants quietly grow in their own tiny ecosystem. You can place one on a table, a windowsill, or even a shaded porch, and it will add a feeling of life and calm to the space. And with a clear plastic bottle, you can create one easily without spending a fortune. Start with a clean, clear bottle. A soda or juice bottle works perfectly. Using scissors or a utility knife, cut it in half. The bottom section will be your container, and the top half will serve as a lid to keep humidity in. If the edges feel rough, you can smooth them gently with fine sandpaper. Begin layering your terrarium. The first layer should be small stones or pebbles. This helps with drainage so the roots don't sit in water. Next, add a thin layer of activated charcoal if you have it. It helps keep the environment fresh. Then spoon in a few inches of potting soil enough to give your plants room to grow. Now comes the planting. Small succulents, moss, or tiny ferns work beautifully. Use the handle of a spoon or a small stick to make holes for the roots, then gently press the plants into place. If you'd like, add decorative touches, a few smooth stones, bits of bark, or even a tiny figurine to make the scene more personal. Once arranged, place the top half of the bottle back over the bottom to act as the lid. This will trap moisture, creating a miniature greenhouse effect. You may only need to water once a week, as the terrarium will recycle much of its own moisture. Set your new creation somewhere it can get indirect light and watch your tiny garden thrive. It's a wonderful way to bring the outdoors inside or to brighten a quiet corner without much maintenance. Every time I look at mine, I'm reminded that beauty doesn't have to be grand to be meaningful. Sometimes the most peaceful worlds are the smallest ones, tended with care and built with our own two hands. There's something almost magical about a terrarium, a little world under glass where plants quietly grow in their own tiny ecosystem. You can place one on a table, a windowsill, or even a shaded porch, and it will add a feeling of life and calm to the space. And with a clear plastic bottle, you can create one easily without spending a fortune. Start with a clean, clear bottle. A soda or juice bottle works perfectly. Using scissors or a utility knife, cut it in half. The bottom section will be your container, and the top half will serve as a lid to keep humidity in. If the edges feel rough, you can smooth them gently with fine sandpaper. Begin layering your terrarium. The first layer should be small stones or pebbles. This helps with drainage so the roots don't sit in water. Next, add a thin layer of activated charcoal if you have it. It helps keep the environment fresh. Then spoon in a few inches of potting soil enough to give your plants room to grow. Now comes the planting. Small succulents, moss, or tiny ferns work beautifully. Use the handle of a spoon or a small stick to make holes for the roots, then gently press the plants into place. If you'd like, add decorative touches, a few smooth stones, bits of bark, or even a tiny figurine to make the scene more personal. Once arranged, place the top half of the bottle back over the bottom to act as the lid. This will trap moisture, creating a miniature greenhouse effect. You may only need to water once a week, as the terrarium will recycle much of its own moisture. Set your new creation somewhere it can get indirect light and watch your tiny garden thrive. It's a wonderful way to bring the outdoors inside or to brighten a quiet corner without much maintenance. Every time I look at mine, I'm reminded that beauty doesn't have to be grand to be meaningful. Sometimes the most peaceful worlds are the smallest ones, tended with care and built with our own two hands. There's a special kind of magic that happens when the garden shifts from day to night. The air cools, the colors soften, and everything seems to slow down. This project captures that gentle transition with solar-powered lanterns made from simple plastic bottles, glowing beacons that light the way without using a single battery or plug once they're set up. Start with a clean, clear, or frosted bottle. The frosted finish will give you a softer, more diffused glow, while a clear bottle will shine more brightly. Using scissors or a utility knife, carefully cut off the top just below the neck to create an open rim. This will make room for your solar light insert. Most small garden solar lights come with a stake. Remove the stake so you're left with just the light and its attached solar panel. Fit the light into the open top of your bottle so the panel faces up. If it's a little loose, a dab of hot glue will keep it secure. Now comes the fun part, decorating. You could wrap the bottle in natural jute or twine for a rustic farmhouse feel, or paint it with translucent glass paints for a colorful stained glass effect. If you'd like something whimsical, add leaf or flower stencils with acrylic paint, letting the light glow through the open spaces. Place your lanterns where they'll get a good dose of sunlight during the day, along a garden path, at the edge of a patio, or hanging from low tree branches. As night falls, they'll begin to glow softly, casting a warm, welcoming light. What I love most about these lanterns is their quiet dependability. They don't ask for much, just a bit of sun each day, and in return, they offer hours of gentle light. In a way, they remind me of the people we cherish most, steady glowing and making life a little brighter just by being there. If you've ever wandered through your garden and wondered, now was this basil or oregano, you're not alone. Even the most seasoned gardeners can lose track, especially when plants are young and their leaves look so similar. That's why I adore this project. Recycled garden markers made from plastic bottles. They're bright, cheerful, and help keep your plants organized in the most charming way. Start with a clean plastic bottle. Smaller ones work best, but any size will do. Using scissors or a utility knife, cut away the smoothest part of the bottle's side to create a flat piece of plastic. From this, cut out simple shapes for your markers. Rectangles work perfectly, but you can get creative with triangles, flag shapes, or even leaf designs. Once you've cut your shapes, it's time to add color. Paint them with acrylics in shades that will stand out against the greenery, sunny yellow, bold red, crisp white, or even soft pastels. If you want extra durability, you can give them a quick coat of clear sealant once the paint is dry. Now for the labels. Use a permanent marker or a fine-tipped paint pen to neatly write the plant's name. Big, clear letters make them easy to read at a glance. You can also decorate the edges with little doodles, a tomato vine, a sprig of rosemary, or a tiny butterfly. To place them in the garden, glue or tape each marker to a wooden skewer chopstick or even a sturdy twig. Push them gently into the soil beside each plant. These little signs do more than just help you remember what's growing where. They bring personality to your garden beds, and they're a wonderful way to make use of plastic that might otherwise be thrown away. Every time you see one, you'll smile. Not just because you know exactly which herb you're snipping, but because you made it yourself with care and intention. There's a quiet joy in watching butterflies drift through the garden wings, catching the sunlight, moving as if the air itself were a gentle stream. This project invites them to linger a little longer, offering a sweet resting spot made from a simple plastic bottle. Start with a clean, medium-sized bottle. Using scissors or a utility knife, cut it in half. The bottom section will hold the nectar and the top half will act as a lid. Near the bottom's rim, cut a few small slits or holes just big enough for butterflies to sip from, but small enough to keep the liquid from spilling too quickly. Next, make the nectar. Mix 1 part white sugar with 4 parts water, stirring until the sugar dissolves completely. Avoid honey or artificial sweeteners. Plain sugar water is safest for butterflies. Pour the nectar into the bottom half of your bottle, filling it just below the slits. Place the top half of the bottle back on inverted to help protect the nectar from debris. Wrap twine or string securely around the bottle's neck, tying it into a loop for hanging. Choose a sunny spot near flowers, as butterflies are more likely to find it there. For an extra welcome, you can tie a small piece of bright sponge or cloth through one of the holes, so it soaks up nectar. Butterflies will perch on it and drink without having to hover. Once it's hanging, you might notice a bit of movement out of the corner of your eye, a splash of orange from a monarch, or the delicate blue shimmer of a hair streak. It's a reminder that your garden isn't just for you. It's a haven for the smallest, most fragile visitors too. And as you watch them, you'll feel the gentle satisfaction of knowing you turned an ordinary bottle into a gift, not just for the garden, but for the beautiful, fleeting creatures that bring it to life. There's something timeless about the soft music of wind chimes. The gentle notes floating through the garden can make even the busiest day feel calmer. And when you make them yourself from something as simple as plastic bottles, they carry not just sound, but the story of your own hands at work. Begin with clean, medium-sized bottles. Using scissors or a utility knife, cut the bottles into rings or long curved strips about 2 to 3 inches wide. Each piece will be one voice in your chime. If you'd like a more polished look, smooth the edges with a bit of fine sandpaper. Now bring them to life with color. Acrylic paint works beautifully. Think soft blues and greens for a peaceful tone, or bright reds and yellows for a cheerful burst. You can even add patterns, dots, spirals, or tiny flowers that will catch the light as they sway. Once painted and dry, it's time to string them. Cut several lengths of sturdy twine or thin cord, threading one bottle piece onto each strand. Knot them in place so they hang at slightly different heights. This variation helps create a more musical sound. Between the bottle pieces, you can add beads, buttons, or small metal washers to change the tone and add weight. Gather all the strands and tie them to a wooden ring embroidery hoop, or even a sturdy stick to serve as the top of your chime. Finish by adding a loop of twine for hanging. Choose a breezy spot, perhaps near your porch, by a favorite chair, or in the branches of a shade tree. As the wind stirs, the chimes will move and sing a mix of soft plastic taps and gentle clicks from the beads. Every time you hear them, you'll be reminded that beauty doesn't always need to be seen. Sometimes it can be heard, carried on the wind, created from something you once thought had no more use at all. There's a quiet satisfaction in knowing exactly how much rain has fallen in your garden. It's a simple measure, but it tells you so much whether your plants have had a good drink or if they might need a little extra from the watering can. With a plastic bottle, you can make your own rain gauge in just a few minutes, and it will serve you faithfully through the seasons. Begin with a clean 2-liter bottle. Remove the label so you can clearly see the water level inside. Using scissors or a utility knife, cut the top off just below the neck where the bottle starts to widen. Set this top piece aside for now. On the bottom section of the bottle, use a ruler and a permanent marker to mark measurements starting about an inch from the base. Make clear, even lines for each inch, and if you like, number them so you can read the rainfall at a glance. Take the top piece you cut off earlier, turn it upside down, and place it into the bottom section like a funnel. This will help direct the rainwater into the gauge and reduce evaporation. You can secure it with a little tape or hot glue, or simply press it snugly into place. Find a spot in your garden that's open to the sky, away from trees' eaves or tall plants that might block the rain. Nestle the gauge into the soil, or set it in a small container of sand to keep it stable. When the rain comes, watch the water slowly rise each mark, telling the story of the storm. Over time, you might even start keeping a little notebook of rainfall amounts, turning this simple tool into part of your gardening ritual. It's a small project, but it connects you more closely to your garden's rhythms, a reminder that tending plants is as much about observing as it is about doing. Sometimes a plant just needs a little lift, a touch of height to help it catch more sunlight, or to make it a centerpiece rather than part of the background. This bottle planter stand is a clever way to do just that, turning humble plastic bottles into a sturdy decorative pedestal for your favorite flowers or herbs. Start by gathering several clean, medium-sized bottles. The more bottles you use, the more stable your stand will be. You'll also need a wooden board or a piece of thick, sturdy cardboard to serve as the base. Arrange the bottles in a cluster on the board. You might set them in a tight circle, a triangle, or even 2 neat rows. The idea is to create a solid base that can bear the weight of a potted plant. Once you're happy with the arrangement, glue the bottles to the base using a hot glue gun or strong adhesive. Press each one firmly to ensure it sticks well. If you want to add a pop of color, paint the bottles before attaching them using bright garden tones like green, yellow, or turquoise. When the glue is dry, place a wide wooden or metal tray on top of the bottles. This will serve as the platform for your plant. Make sure it's balanced securely before adding any weight. If you'd like extra stability, glue or screw the tray to the tops of the bottles. Now you're ready for the fun part, choosing what to display. A pot of vibrant petunias, a lush basil plant, or even a decorative fern will all shine when given a little height. Place your stand where it can be seen and enjoyed, beside your porch steps, at the end of a garden path, or in the middle of a flower bed. It's more than just a way to show off a plant. It's a conversation piece, a little work of art you built yourself from items that might have been tossed away. Sometimes the best way to add beauty to a garden is to build upward. A vertical flower pot tower doesn't just save space, it creates a striking column of color that draws the eye from the ground all the way up. And with a few sturdy plastic bottles, you can make one that's both lightweight and surprisingly strong. Start by collecting bottles of the same or similar size so they stack evenly. Clean and dry them well, then remove the labels. You'll also need a sturdy base. A square of wood or thick cardboard works nicely to keep the tower stable. Begin by gluing the first bottle upright onto the center of the base. Use hot glue or a strong adhesive, pressing firmly until it sets. Then place the next bottle directly on top, lining up the bottoms and tops, so the tower stays straight. Continue stacking as high as you like, securing each layer with glue. For added strength, you can insert a dowel or metal rod through the center of all the bottles before gluing, which helps keep everything aligned. Once the structure is built, you can paint the bottles to match your garden's color scheme or leave them clear for a modern look. If you want them to hold plants, directly cut openings in the sides of the bottles before stacking, creating little windows for planting pockets. When the tower is complete, place a large flower pot or planter on the very top. The height will give your chosen plant, whether it's cascading ivy, trailing petunias, or a burst of geraniums, a stage to truly shine. Set your vertical tower where it can be admired from all angles. It's a wonderful way to turn an unused corner into a focal point, And every time you see it, you'll be reminded that even simple materials can rise to great heights with a bit of imagination. There's something special about a table dressed with fresh flowers. Whether it's for a quiet afternoon tea or a family gathering, a living centerpiece makes the whole space feel warmer and more welcoming. With a few clear plastic bottles, you can create a display that's both beautiful and sustainable, and you can change it with the seasons. Begin by collecting clear bottles in the size you prefer. Large bottles make bold, dramatic centerpieces, while smaller ones feel delicate and intimate. Rinse them clean, then decide how tall you'd like each vase to be. Cut the bottles to your chosen height with scissors or a utility knife, smoothing any rough edges with fine sandpaper. For decoration, you can keep the bottles clear for a crisp, modern look, or paint them in soft tones, pale lavender, warm cream, or muted green to complement your flowers. Wrapping the bases in jute twine, ribbon, or strips of fabric adds texture and charm. To give the vases weight and stability, pour a layer of decorative stones, marbles, or gravel into the bottom. This not only anchors the bottle, but also adds a pretty layer that will be visible through the clear sides. Fill the rest of the space with potting soil if you want to plant small living flowers. Marigolds, pansies, or even miniature roses work well. For cut flowers, simply fill with fresh water and arrange your blooms so they fan out naturally. Once your bottles are ready, group them in the center of your table. Try varying their heights for a more dynamic display, or arrange them in a straight line for a classic runner effect. The best part, you can refresh your centerpiece anytime, swapping in seasonal flowers, colorful foliage, or even small evergreen sprigs in winter. It's a simple way to bring the life of the garden right to your table, reminding everyone gathered there that beauty can bloom anywhere, even from something as humble as a bottle you once thought to throw away. Well, my friend, we've wandered together through a whole garden of ideas today, from glowing lanterns and cascading flower pots to tiny terrariums and cheerful gnomes. Each one started as something simple, something most people might have tossed in the bin without a second thought. And yet, with a little time, care, and imagination, those bottles became treasures. That's the beauty of upcycling. It's not just about saving money or keeping waste out of the landfill. It's about giving new life to something forgotten, about seeing possibility where others see only an ending. Every cut, every brushstroke of paint, every tiny plant tucked into soil is a reminder that our hands still know how to create, no matter how many seasons they've seen. And just like these bottles, we too have been shaped by time. We've been scratched, weathered, maybe even bent a little, but we're still here, still capable of holding light, of growing something beautiful, of adding joy to the world around us. So the next time you see an empty bottle, don't think of it as trash. Think of it as an invitation, a quiet little what if that could lead to a hanging herb garden, a path lined with color, or a lantern that glows softly at dusk. I'd love to know which of these ideas spoke to you most. Will you try the butterfly feeder, the bottle wind chimes? Or perhaps you've got a brand new idea already blooming in your mind. Share it with me in the comments. I can't wait to hear. Until next time, may your days be full of gentle light, your garden full of life, and your heart full of the pride that comes from making something with your own two hands. Happy gardening, dear friend.